I'm Rick Dior, and this is part 2 of my video series on this Afro-Cuban type of Latin grooves. So we started out with the first video with just playing some clave and showing you the drums that I use, and now we're going to start showing you the grooves that I use. All these grooves are located in my book, Advanced Coordination for Drum Set and Hand Percussion. I'm still a little bit sick, so I'll try to speak as loud as I can so you can hear me, but I may go a little slower today just so I can catch my breath. So you heard several variations there of a rhythm called cha-cha-cha, and you heard me playing piano and bass, and what I do is I set up these loops of these traditional rhythms, and I practice over them for many hours so I can get comfortable, so when I go on a gig everything's really solid. And I also record myself doing it so I can hear any kind of inconsistencies. Now cha-cha-cha can be played lots and lots of different ways, from very simple to very complex. In my book I have all of those. I have 4 different examples on page 54 of different kinds of cha-chas. So you can play standard cha-chas as you'd find if you play a salsa gig, or you could play rock cha-chas like Santana does, and you heard some of that there, just a lot heavier. Let's go over the basics though of the rhythm. Now whenever you're playing these rhythms, you have to remember that you're imitating a percussion section, which consists of bongos, timbales, and congas. Also there's going to be a güiro player, normally one of the singers, and a güiro is a scraped gourd. I'm sure you all know what that is. Now that pattern needs to be copied somehow on the kit if you're playing without a güiro player, which in my case is pretty often. So I do that a few different ways. The first way is just splashing the hi-hat like this. So if I play the standard cha-cha rhythm, I'll show you how that works. So you see that's kind of a relentless thing that goes through the rhythm section and keeps everything really tight. So that's important. Now cha-cha is a ballroom dance, so you've got to really lay it down so people can dance to it. And it has a straight kind of 4-click going. So I either use the cross-room click like this, or I'll do a cowbell combination like I showed you in the first video. Either one of those is fine. The whole idea though is to create that driving rhythm. So let me show you how that sounds. So you feel that rhythm. Now cha-chas can be slower, a little slower than that. That particular tempo was 124. You can do them, 110, and they can be fast too. They can go, But you're not going to find any dancing at that tempo. That's more for a jazz kind of setting, like a big band thing. Of course, you can use anything you want, but if you're going to play for dancers, they're going to get really mad if you play too fast. So just focus on playing that kind of medium tempo from 110 all the way maybe up to 130 at the fastest for dancing. So that's where you want to put your metronome. Now the bass drum doesn't do too much because the bass player is playing and you don't want to wipe them out. So just a light accent on the end of 2 and maybe 4. So I was getting a little more rock there where I was doing some doubles on the bass drum. And that's okay in a jazz setting. Remember, this series of videos is our fusion videos, Latin jazz fusion. So it goes into the jazz aspect and not necessarily just for dancing. Now there you saw me play on my hi-hat the other Wiro pattern, which is this. So all that is a buzz and then 2 strokes. It's pretty simple. And you could do that on the cymbal as well. You could even do it on a cowbell. It's a little trickier, but... The last part of the cha-cha rhythm is going to be the conga part. So the conga part is this. And again, if you have questions about that, I did maybe 4 or 5 conga videos, and cha-chas are on there. And I think it's on conga video number 2, so maybe take a look at those and you'll see. You need to be familiar with all the hand drum parts for these things so you can simulate it. And if I would suggest you learn to play hand drums, so when you play this stuff, it sounds more authentic. Now, the tom parts are what's going to imitate that conga open sound. So that's the last ingredient here. So let me introduce that. So that's the last ingredient there to fill out your groove. Now you don't always have to play that tom part. And if you're playing with a conga player, don't play it because you'll just step on their toes by imitating what they're doing. If you play with a conga player, just do what I did like earlier, like this. All right. Now the cha-cha could be more in a halftime feel like I did there, where the cowbells are just doing this. Because remember, you're still driving with that left hand. So we're switching surfaces around here. You can also use a clave block to play that rhythm, that quarter note, and then your hands are free. So. Now, when I solo over these things, that's what I do. So I'll have that clave playing, kind of a relentless quarter note, and then I'll solo. So that keeps everybody together. You're not going to be playing these drum solos normally when there's dancers, but again, in a jazz fusion setting, you will definitely solo playing cha-cha, and I have many, many times. So that's what I do. I set something up like that. You no longer need the Wiro pattern, and then you can solo over that, okay? Now, as far as the funk cha-chas go, you'll find those on numbers 3 and 4 on page 54. So all I'm doing is I'm adding a backbeat. So if I play my top line, which is this, and by the way, I meant to say this before, all these hi-hat patterns are completely interchangeable from groove to groove. So in other words, the hi-hat pattern for number 2 can be used for number 1 and vice versa. So don't hesitate to do that. They all work. They all sound good. So if we do that, so now you hear the backbeat. And you could play that pretty heavy in a rock, like you're doing a Santana kind of groove, a heavy rock thing. All right, so right there, I'm going all out, you know, funk and rock on you there to do that. And that's okay in that setting. These are all related to that. So you can start simple and build it to a crescendo like that. All right? So let's go over these rhythms for you quickly. Now, these are all contained in the book on the CD, which has, you know, over 300 tracks on there of all these grooves. And I play them exactly like they're written. But here I'm going to stretch out just a little for you. And I'll explain a few things on how to practice them. The best way to practice these when you're putting them together is in pieces. So you get one ostinato going. And lots of these, like I said, are built on these building block ostinatos from page 13 through 19. So the first thing you're going to do is play that cowbell hi-hat rhythm. And here I'm doing it to my right. You can also do it on two bells. So in other words, or, now make sure you're playing the first note loud and the second note soft. So use the shaft on the cowbell, that cowbell, the cha-cha bell, and then use the tip on this timbali bell. So it's ghosted. So again, this is an ostinato, a repeating pattern. You've got to get comfortable with that first. Again, as in all great drum rhythms, it's the ghosting that makes things sound great and hip, okay? So there, the ghosting takes place on that second eighth note that you see in numbers 1 and 3 in the book. So once again, now, the best way to practice this is to go to pages 7 and 8 and play those rhythms under that ostinato. So if you're doing this, and, you know, get that going first, then add the hi-hat. So you see there, I'm playing some complex bass note rhythms under that. If you work on that a lot, you can't screw up. So that's how I practice this stuff. Again, it's ostinato based. Any ostinato based rhythm, you need to be able to be fluent with at least one limb under that. So that's number 1, and I'll just play it for you here. So. All right? And again, feel free to improvise. That's what you need to be able to do under that ostinato. Now, the second one's a little bit different. That has that halftime cowbell pattern. So on this one, you're going to play the other bell a little bit louder. Okay? The cha-cha bell is accented, but the other bell, the timbali bell, you can play that louder. You don't have to ghost it. And let's play that for you. So. All right? So let's play the whole rhythm. So that's rhythm number 2. Again, you can interchange hi-hat patterns. The next one, or the next 2 rhythms, 3 and 4, are kind of funky because they have a backbeat. So you can do that a number of ways, but I choose to normally do it between a hi-hat and a cowbell. So. You know, you can improvise with the toms like I'm doing there. The next one, number 4, that's the one with the buzz. Let's just do it on the cowbell so you can hear that. So the hi-hat can be on the upbeats here. So. So you see I added that backbeat after a couple bars so you could hear it without it. So those are a little more funky, and a lot of times on the bridge of a tune or even the chorus you could add that backbeat, you know, a snare drum. So that's it for the cha-cha-cha. The next video I'll be doing will be on the mambo. I have lots of variations of this in my book. We'll play with some tracks, we'll do some soloing, and I think you're really going to enjoy that. So I'll see you next time. Thanks.